The DayZ 1.21 patch is absolutely horrendous. Alright, you may be a little bit confused. This is not a DayZ channel, but I have to rant about this because I am absolutely furious. But before I do, let me give you some context in case you're not a DayZ player. DayZ is a survival game in which you are put into a giant map and told to survive and make up your own story. It was originally a mod for Arma 2, then it became its own standalone game, which stayed in alpha for 4 years or 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, eventually coming out of alpha. DayZ was such a popular game that it spawned many other games trying to do the exact same thing, or things that were very similar. DayZ, H1Z1, Unturned, and a lot of other games straight up copied DayZ because it was really revolutionary for the time. It was also a game that was mocked for a while for being, quote, forever in alpha. It gained quite a bad reputation despite being very fun and addicting, primarily due to developers being more concerned at the time with adding stuff instead of fixing stuff, meaning that you would have a buggy, laggy game where your FPS would never go above 40, not literally of course, but despite all that it was okay because the developers added a new gun. You can probably see how frustrating this got. Keep that in mind if you will. That's how DayZ was for a long time during the alpha. Anyway, at some point in time the developer team changed and so did the engine. Things were actually getting fixed, the map was being updated, life was good for a long time. Then came 1.0, which removed most of the content that people had gotten used to, and it was absolutely dreadful. So dreadful, in fact, that it made me stop playing the game. But despite this, the player base grew, and it was an easy game to understand, despite there being a lot to learn. Sticks plus paper or rags made a fire, drinking from secure water sources such as pumps was better than drinking from lakes, being too low temperature would get you sick and you'd need medicine, and cooking food required matches. Guns would have travel time, different calibers, you'd need to find magazines for some types of guns, and when you were bleeding, you would patch yourself up with a bandage. It was pretty self-explanatory, and despite the fact that the game got objectively worse than when it was in the beta, a lot of people still enjoyed it. As time progressed, the developers started adding more stuff back. Recently, 5 years later by the way, they recently re-added a pistol, which had been missing for all these years, the Longhorn pistol. It's a sniper pistol thing. And modding support was added. For a while, that's how it was. As patches came and went, things would be added back, new things would be added, the maps would get more development. Yes, I said maps because at some point they added a new map called Livonia, which when it came out, everyone absolutely despised it. But that's nothing a community server couldn't fix. And DayZ is just one of those games where the community fix response actually kind of works, because now the community could make a lot of maps. Namalsk, Deer Isle, and Essaker come to mind. They also removed some features which had been in the game since the start, in which every single DayZ player had gotten used to, such as being able to tear up rags from a t-shirt without needing a knife. You know, that thing you could probably do right now as you're listening to this video. And while it was obnoxious, the developers were on the right track for the most part. They even had this interview with TopRec where they said if they wanted to add stuff, they would have to think about it and think about all the possibilities and what it would mean for the game, particularly when TopRec asked about code locks, which is how you lock your base in community servers. It's one of the ways you can use to lock your base. It was a bit strange to me because they also mentioned something about balancing, if my memory serves me correctly, which then why can't you just tear up rags from a t-shirt? If you patch yourself up with unclean rags or bandages, your character gets a wound infection. But look, fine, you know what, whatever. The stuff was good, stuff was being added, and during the 1.19 and 1.20 patches to DayZ, life was very, very good. Not perfect, because there were some things that they had changed some time ago that I had no idea that they had changed, but I'll leave that. I'll leave that for a second. There were still some annoying bugs, such as you not being able to put anything in your hands after performing certain actions sometimes. There were still other bugs, but most of them, a grand majority of them, weren't game-breaking, and most of them were just downright funny. Here's one on your screen.
This is the most fuck shit ever. Fuck it up. What the fuck? Oh shit! Oh, what the fuck?
CK, please clip right now. Please clip right now. And they were so rare you couldn't really bring yourself to care about them. Come on, it was funny. Admit it, it was funny. So when DayZ 1.21 patch was announced, people were excited. There weren't that many bugs, so people thought that finally we would get a more stable game, even more stable than it already was, while getting some really cool additions. There had been talk of a secret bunker being added to Chernarus, the original map, for a while, and the possible location of it was awesome in Northwest Airfield, which meant the stakes were even higher whenever you would go to that location. And it would give you a reason to keep exploring around the map to find the ways to open that bunker. There were many discussions and they were really exciting. I actually found myself participating in a lot of discussions and speculations ever since I, well, got back into Fallout. And then the patch came out. So what was added this patch? There were a few, and I want to highlight that, a few bug fixes. They added crossbows that have bolts that last longer than your automatic assault rifle, which it took a whole 6 seconds for people to figure out you could just craft bolts over and over again and destroy people's bases without making a fucking peep. Allowing you to raid without suffering the consequences of raiding, that being having to make a lot of noise. And medieval armor, which is stronger than a lot of the military armor that you use. Okay, look. This is the least offensive part of the patch, and it already makes me want to blow my brains out. There are two types of damage in the game, shock and health. Too much shock damage means you get knocked out, whereas too much health damage means you die. All types of attacks in the game provide shock damage, but mostly it's melee weapons that provide the most amount of shock damage, so you would think that this armor would have high shock resistance, right? After all, if you have metal armor and you get punched, you're gonna resist it. Naturally, it's fine. And although that's what they did, they also buffed up the armor like crazy with the health damage as well. Meaning that if you get shot while you have the full medieval armor set, you can resist gunshots from the highest calibers in the game better than you can with vests. Take a look at this clip from this video from a popular DayZ YouTuber called Wobo. He provides guides and tips. That gun you are seeing him use is one of the strongest in the entire game with one of the highest calibers in the entire game, and look at the players just tanking that. It's on your screen now. I'll just leave it on loop just so you can watch this. Folks, that is higher damage resistance than the best armor in the game. The best military armor that you get in the game. So let me get this straight. You want to worry about balancing, you want to worry about how it's gonna affect the game, yet the medieval armor, metal armor, is better, outright better than most armor in the game most of the time? This gets even dumber when you consider that some vests that were in DayZ for the longest time, and for the longest time I mean since the alpha, had all of their damage removed. Are you fucking kidding me right now? After years of being on the right track for so long and being praised for not being like the old development team, you go right back to the mindset of the old development team of where you just add stupid fucking gimmicks that every, and I do mean every community server I play on, immediately nerf because everybody saw how absolutely retarded this was, yet none of you dipshits did. So now, I will have better chances of survival from the strongest guns in the game than I will have if I have full military gear. Okay, that's nice. And a lot of the vests that I find don't even provide me any protection, so fuck it. I guess the medieval ages were just the best sort of ages for warfare. Look at us stupid humans over here, using Kevlar and shit to protect ourselves from gunshots. No. How stupid we were. How if only we knew that all we had to do was pick up a piece of metal and put it in front of our chests. We're so stupid, aren't we? But Enclave Emily, you're making the argument about realism in a video game. Well, that's kind of the whole point with DayZ, so shut the fuck up. Alright, so developers unbalancing the game and adding game-breaking gimmicks that make absolutely no sense. Okay, that's nice, that's lovely, but at least, at the very least, they, fix the bugs. Remember the hand bug? You remember that? Yeah, they probably fixed that. They probably fixed the bugs. Oh, no. Yeah, peak gaming. While everybody else is pissed off about other AAA games being broken, unfixable pieces of shit, DayZ for a long while was actually a gold standard, devs actually fixing stuff, being very careful to make sure that every single bit of content that they added or re-added was actually good. Were they perfect? No, fuck no. But when you have servers literally dedicated to experimental builds where you're going to push out updates and test stuff, and a team of people who are autistically focused on making sure everything makes sense and everything works, I'd like to ask, how the fuck do you not notice any of this shit? From servers being unstable as fuck and crashing multiple times a day, to performance being outright fucked, to the reemergence of bugs that were rare or non-existent, to even the fucking launcher blocking you from joining servers if you have them in your favorites. Thanks for that, assholes. While you can still play DayZ, this is a massive, and I do mean massive, step backwards. Are the DayZ devs getting way too confident with the amount of players that have been on? Because after all of the progress, after all of the fucking progress that DayZ made throughout the years, we are right back to fucking step one. We are right back to this mentality of adding stupid shit that a whole 0 people asked for, that outright breaks the game, and you focus on that shit so much, to the point where now the servers are fucked. Oh sure, yeah, you can still play DayZ, in fact you might have sessions where nothing happens, but when shit starts to get fucked, oh believe me it starts to get fucked. Just in the first day of the new patch, I've had to re-log into the server that I was playing, just because I kept getting the bug of not being able to put stuff in my hands over and over and over and over again, only for me to crash when I then re-log and try to drop an item on the floor. And I'm not the only one who has this problem. The fucking discussions on Steam are filled with this crap, and community server discords are filled to the brim with people complaining. Poor fucking admins of community servers having to answer multiple times a day, having to explain that it's just the patch that fucked it up, and also having to stay up to manually restart the servers because they keep fucking crashing. It's also the same on official servers, believe it or not. This is not just a community server thing. You have to understand this. This is on the official servers. The official server that a person who just got into DayZ is most likely going to play first. People who play on those servers are now going to have to deal with getting permanently sick, constantly getting bugged, having to relog, if not the server just outright dying. But it's okay, guys. It's okay, because we now have a crossbow and medieval armor. Seeing people actually defend this garbage, the game getting actively worse, and the game being actively unstable and fucking crashing on you more than ever. Not literally ever, it's an expression. But seeing people actually defend this crap, saying, oh no, the patch is okay, the update's actually really good. Why? Because I have a sword now, and I have a medieval helmet now, while completely ignoring the fact that the game barely functions, is astounding to me. It's actually astounding to me. Have people's standards nowadays actually gotten so low where they'll be happy, they'll be fucking happy with the game being fucking fucked, as long as a fucking sword and medieval armor is added? If the devs were more focused on improving the reliability of the game functioning than they were about a fucking piece of armor, then maybe the game would actually be playable. It's not that it's unplayable, but fucking hell, I have rage quit multiple times because of this. I mean, just on my end alone, I have lost characters because the game decided to have the hand bug during a gunfight, believe it or not, when I tried to bandage myself, and then it just crashing on me, and then the enemy just walking up to where I was and just shooting me in the head while I couldn't do anything because the game crashed. Your character stays on the server after you leave, that's why it stays on the server for a couple seconds. Honestly, peak modern gaming. Peak fucking modern gaming. Just give them something cool to look at and they'll just ignore how absolutely broken the game is. And it's extra painful. I just need you to understand how painful this is, because whenever you hear people defend the current devs, the defense of just remember how bad the old dev team was always comes up. It always fucking comes up, and yet here they are with the exact same mentality of the old dev team, but people are okay with it because look, a crossbow. And don't you fucking dare tell me that they didn't notice it, and if you just report it, they'll fix it. Don't you fucking dare tell me that, because I got, and a lot of people, a whole fucking lot of people got all of these bugs that I mentioned within hours of playing the new patch. Within hours of the patch coming out, people had already figured out that the primary cause of the hand bug, the not being able to put things in your hand bug, was primarily caused by cutting off sticks from a bush with a knife. This was noticed within hours, and I do mean hours, less than 12 hours of the patch coming out. And that's just one example. So take that XL-sized, overused bad dragon product out of your backside and realize how fucked this is and call the devs out for this instead of just bending over and taking it because it's fucking retarded. Speaking of fucking retarded, I have just one more pet peeve that really pisses me off about this game. It's not even bugs or additions at this point. They made a change that makes no sense, right? So you remember how I said that sticks and rags make a fire, right? So how do you light up that fire? You need A, matches, B, a lighter, C, a flare. More often than not, you're gonna find matches, right? And matches can get wet. So, if it's raining, or the weather is cold, or whatever, you're gonna want to wear dry clothing. Or perhaps a waterproof backpack, such as a dry bag, which is an item you can get in the game that, for the longest time, you have just put stuff in there, and stuff inside would not get wet. Well, dry clothing is no longer dry in the game. Anything that purports itself to be waterproof in this game is no longer waterproof. So instead of adding guns that are still in the game files that are just missing, or, you know, testing your own fucking game, you thought it was more prudent to make dry clothing not dry, add a sword, a crossbow, and some medieval armor that's better than military gear in the game. You thought it was more prudent to do that than actually make the game function or be balanced. Fucking kill yourself! Thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for rating, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.